think we're on. So everybody, welcome back to another episode of On the Couch with My Food Religion. Today I'm joined by Zara and we're going to be talking all things EMFs today. So I thought we might start, actually, one of the first questions I like to know is, what did you have for breakfast today?
What did I have for breakfast today? I had lion's mane mushrooms with broccoli and a poached egg. I'd never had lion's mane, and yeah.
Fresh lion's mane. I've only ever had it in powdered form.
I came across it in the health food store on Saturday, and I saw it and looked very obscure, and I thought, this is something I need to have.
Awesome. So you will be firing on all cognitive cylinders because lion's mane is excellent for cognitive function.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. So Zara, can you please tell everybody a little bit about who you are, your background, and a bit about that sort of jazz?
Yeah, sure. So I have a business called The Healthy Home, and so environmental health is a real passion of mine, and it's something that came about after going through 2 different types of cancer. I'm losing a very dear friend to cancer, and realising that our home environment can make us sick, and it was making me sick, and I've been on it's been a 7-year, I hate using the word journey, but it has been a journey, into deep dive into the world of environmental health, and I'm on a really big mission now to educate and empower others to create healthier home environments so that their families can thrive.
That sounds awesome. If you don't mind me asking, what sort of cancer did you have, and what environmental things do you think contributed to that?
So I had breast cancer at age 30, and then I had a melanoma at age 32. And then I had a long list of different symptoms that no medical professional could really pinpoint. And then I had a building biologist come to my house, and we suspected mold, and I suspect exposure to water, damaged buildings, as well as a whole set of other things like processed food, chemicals, all that sort of stuff. But he felt that the wireless coming from my neighbour's Wi-Fi router was contributing to heart palpitations that I was getting every time I was in my living room. So that was when I made the connection between all different aspects of our environment and our health.
That's so interesting, isn't it?
Yeah.
So do you live close to your neighbours?
I did then. I was in a townhouse. My neighbour's bedroom, kitchen shared a wall with my living area. Yeah.
So would you say that you're someone who's then particularly sensitive to EMFs? And
yeah, and I was then. By that point, I'd had 30 doses of radiation after breast cancer. I'd had 3 surgeries in 2 years and a lot of stress. So at that point, I was particularly sensitive.
Yeah, interesting. So can you tell everybody a little bit about what EMFs even are?
Yeah. So there's EMFs, so electromagnetic fields, and that's it comes from your power lines, your electrical appliances and devices, anything where there's electrical current that flows, and then there's electromagnetic radiation, so EMR, and that is a type of electromagnetic field. So that's your wireless technology. So radio waves from satellites, your phone, your Wi-Fi router, baby monitors, your Sonos system, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, so basically anything that runs off a wireless connection that's not actually plugged into a hard, like your NBN or whatever, if it's not actually plugged into a network. So if you want to use your computer and you're not actually plugged into a cord to get the internet, you're using some sort of wireless situation. So any of those sorts of things are going to put electromagnetic radiation in our home. So it seems to me that in this day and age, it is unavoidable. Like, exposure to these sorts of things is completely unavoidable. So I feel like we have 2 ends of the spectrum here, where we have people who think that it doesn't make any difference and we're fine, and bloody wrap yourself in Wi-Fi, all of the things, and it's not going to make any difference to you ever. And then you've got the complete opposite end of the spectrum, where it's all one big conspiracy and the government's actually trying to turn us into robots and we should all wear tinfoil hats, and there's a rabbit hole that's 400 miles deep. And it kind of sounds a little hysterical and terrifying.
Yeah.
And then I think there's something in the middle that is worth talking about and thinking about and bringing a bit more awareness to, and having a little bit more presence of mind around, yes, exposure to electromagnetic radiation in this day and age is completely unavoidable. Realistically, for 99.9% of the population, we are going to be exposed to these things.
Yep.
If we have electrical devices in our house and we don't have dirty electricity blockers or whatever, like aside from wrapping yourself in fucking tinfoil, you can't stop it. So what sort of things, I mean, you already alluded to the fact that you were very, very sensitive to these sorts of things, particularly when you were at your sickest and you'd been going through a lot of treatment and a lot of stresses and things that were probably making your body particularly suppressed in all of its ways.
Yeah.
For the general punter, what sort of things is exposure to these EMFs and EMRs going to look like, or what could it look like?
Yeah, so the most common things I see are insomnia and migraines. I did for a little while, I was doing home audits, and every single home that I went into where there was someone in the household experiencing insomnia, headaches or migraines, that member of the household was spending significant periods of time every day. Either the Wi-Fi router was next to their bed head or right next to their desk, or, you know, they're watching TV every night, the Wi-Fi router's next to the TV. There was one household where there were twin baby girls and terrible sleepers, and I measured the radio frequency levels at the baby monitors, and it was equivalent to being next to a Wi-Fi router. And the mother straight after that stopped using the baby monitors, and at the same time started using lavender oil, so who knows which, but I suspect both. She messaged me 3 days later and she said the girls have been sleeping soundly through the night and they slept right through until 8 o'clock this morning. So you might not think that you're sensitive, but there might be things that you think are just part of your daily, just, you know, headaches all the time or not sleeping very well, but actually and this is, you know, people can get a bit anxious and scared of all this stuff, but I actually find it really empowering because it's that awareness, but then there's really simple things that you can do to reduce your exposure in your own home.
So are you like a building biologist now? Do you go around and
I'm studying building biology, but I don't I thought that I wanted to do audits, but I decided that wasn't for me. But I've got an e-course, so I educate people on how they can make the changes in their home, but I'm also studying how to design and build a healthy home, because I find pointing out existing problems wasn't enjoyable for me, but actually people that are renovating or building have this amazing opportunity to choose materials that aren't going to exacerbate radio frequencies and make sure the electrical wiring is done properly, and so many other different aspects.
Yeah, that's super interesting. So aside from migraines and insomnia, what could be things that, you know, are going to affect our health?
Yeah, so I mean, long-term radio frequency radiation, it is classified as a probable 2B carcinogen by the World Health Organization. There's a long-time advisor to the World Health Organization. He's a doctor that in 2017 said that there's enough evidence now to classify it as a group 1 carcinogen. And there are studies that show that it does contribute to glioma, which is a type of brain tumour. It can cause damage to DNA. It can affect learning and memory. So that's something that's really important for young children. It can affect our reproductive systems, our neurological system. It can make us feel anxious. There's lots of different ways it can affect us.
Okay, so my next question is, if we have this evidence and people who are advising the World Health Organization are making statements like this is a level 1 or 2 carcinogen, the fuck have we still got this shit happening? Like, how is it that these types of things are floating about? Like, any Tom, Dick and Harry can go and buy a pair of wireless headphones or have a wireless router next to your bed with no direction or guidance around what that might do.
It's absolutely crazy, and I've been researching this stuff for the past 5 years, and there's been warnings about this type of technology going back to the 70s and 80s. We've known this sort of stuff that's just been ignored. But you look at, so the Australia sets its radio frequency standards based on a division of the World Health Organization. ICNIRP is the acronym. I can't remember what it is in full, but they set their standards for radio frequencies in 1998. And so up until this year, the standard had not been reviewed, which is just mind-blowing given how much technology's changed in that time. Interestingly, they published an update to their guidelines for the first time in 22 years. They published it in March this year when the whole world was totally distracted by COVID-19. And the problem with the evidence that they use to publish their standards is that they only take into account the thermal effects, so the degree to which the body tissue heats up. They don't acknowledge any of the thousands of studies on the biological effects. And the more and more you look into it, you realise that the studies that they're using to set the standards are biased. They're funded by industry. So they just choose to ignore the thousands of studies and scientists that are urging them to review their guidelines.
And so these other studies that have been done that are showing that there is definitely health concerns around these types of technologies, are they not legitimate studies? Like, have they not been done well? Are they, like, how are they not even being acknowledged?
You go to PubMed, the world's leading peer-reviewed medical database. There's lots of studies on there, not just the effect on human health, but also insects, birds, wildlife.
So I think there's a lot of talk now around the rollout of 5G that's happening. So currently we had 3G, and in some areas that you go to, you'll still notice on your phone it pops up with 3G. And then we transitioned into 4G. So what was the difference between 3G and 4G?
So the difference between 4G is a slightly higher frequency, but the difference between 4G and 5G is a different type of, it's using millimeter wave technology. So it's shorter wavelengths that are higher intensity. And Telstra has said, I feel like I probably shouldn't name telcos. I'm sorry, I don't want to get in trouble. But a telco in Australia currently has information.
We'll call them Telfa.
On its
with tel and with straw.
On its website, saying that they've now rolled out 5G with frequencies up to 3.6 gigahertz, but by the middle of this year, they're going to add another layer that goes up to 26 gigahertz. So that is a massive increase. And the problem with the 5G is because it's shorter wavelengths. It only travels a few hundred meters. So they need a denser network of small cells, which is what we're seeing now with the rollout of smart cities. So smaller cells on traffic lights. You've got smart bins. What's it called when you press the button when you're at the traffic light?
Yeah, the pedestrian crossing.
Yeah. So we need more of them for it to be effective. So I'm
opposed to having like a suburb has a phone tower, one there, and then there might be another one, I don't know, 50 kilometres away or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
So now you're saying, so basically the people who live next to that phone tower probably not living their best life. But if you're 50 k's away from that phone tower, you're definitely exposed to less of that direct.
Yeah, and even you could be 800 metres away and be significantly better off. But the problem is there's no planning approval required for these towers because they're deemed low impact, but that refers to the aesthetic impact. It doesn't take into account so we're seeing these towers go up on top of daycare centres, schools, apartments, people's homes, next to people's homes with no planning approval. And the thing, there's all these bodies of evidence about the harm, but there's no proof that it's safe, and that's what we need to be putting onto our policymakers. Testing has only ever been done on a 6-foot adult male dummy based on 6 minutes phone usage a day. There is not a single human study that proves that this technology is safe.
Right, and what happened to the dummy that's not a living person? It's body heated up at some point.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So, yeah, right. So we've got lots of studies. Do we have studies on 5G, or do we just have studies on wireless as it currently stands?
We have the studies on, there's a researcher by the name of Gandhi who's in 1986 was warning about millimetre wave technology. So there are studies and papers on that. But there's also, this type of millimetre wave frequency is used by the US military for what they call active denial systems, which is basically non-lethal form of crowd control. We know that it penetrates the skin, and there's concerns that that our sweat ducts act as an antenna for that type of frequency. So yeah, there is a lot of stuff out there that is credible in terms of concerns about this type of technology.
And I think probably the most important thing is that you can't prove that it's safe. So, you wouldn't be allowed to, this is going to be a very questionable statement, you wouldn't be allowed to release a medication onto the market without proving not that it's not going to kill somebody, but that it's safe.
Exactly.
And that, the side effects are going to be this, but, it's safe for 99.9% of the population, and, the other 0.1% are probably going to have heart attacks or migraines, or they're going to die. But there's nothing to prove that it's safe. So why is it okay that we expect that pharmaceutical companies or people who are putting food on our shelves have to adhere to a level of safety to prove that not only is it not going to kill you, but it's actually safe for you to consume? Why is there such disparity in?
There's no burden of, it's honestly, it's mind-blowing. It's this will be, like the cigarette industry, tobacco industry, this will be, I hope that it doesn't take 10 years for us to start seeing lawsuits. But like Lloyd's of London, the insurer, they will not insure electromagnetic radiation related illnesses, which they wouldn't choose not to cover unless there was substantial information for them upon which to make that decision not to cover it.
But would their choice not to cover it be based on the fact that how can you prove that it is that? Like, you can't go to the doctor and they're going to go, yes, that's definitely EMR. Like, they're not going to say, like, where's the basis of proof to say that that is related to that, as opposed to the fact that you are, taking drugs, eating shit food, and drinking every single day of life.
Up next to your house and you start having, symptoms, which, yeah.
So with 5G, we're going to see a lot more of these. What the hell are they even called? They're not towers as such, are they? Because they can go onto anything.
Well, there are towers, but then there's also the small cell antennas on traffic lights, street lights. Yeah, the bins have cameras. We've got smart bins now in Melbourne and Sydney.
It sounds like jumping up and down and stamping our feet about this is not going to make the change right now. So, people can obviously take action. I've seen on your website that you've got petitions that people can send to their local governments and things like that. But to be honest, unless we have a mass.
Yeah. So something that I've learned I've had a petition in federal parliament for glyphosate, the key ingredient in Roundup, and that's, trying to get any change through federal parliament at the moment is like, just don't even bother. But there have been a growing number of precedents set in local communities. So the Byron Shire, the Northern Rivers Group for Safe Technology, they are an incredible example of a really powerful united community group that has been able to stop. There's a moratorium on a tower in Mullumbimby, but Telstra tried to go in anyway, and even after the moratorium was set, to try and turn it on. Currumbin Valley has stopped a tower. There's so many countries and cities internationally that have stopped it. City of San Diego has a 1,000-metre limit for the distance in which they can be erected near homes, schools, workplaces. I've reached out to my local council, the Tweed Shire, and interestingly, the mayor and the deputy mayor they totally agree that it shouldn't be rolled out. There's 5 councillors that want it. So I think it is possible to create change, and I think this isn't something that we should be staying silent on and saying it's too hard to change. But it is all about a grassroots movement, strong united local communities.
Yeah. So, for people, why do people want 5G? What's the big whoop?
Faster internet, artificial intelligence, smart technology, so smart homes, driverless cars, surveillance.
So all of that requires 5G as opposed to 4G.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
when you look at the people that are, look at the people that are investing, like Bill Gates is a major investor in 5G in the US, and we know what his agenda is. Yeah. So for me, to be honest, I look at my phone, I'm like 4G. It doesn't, like, a web page loads so quickly. Like, I can't count seconds between how long it takes me to get to a website. How much quicker do I need that to be? This is why it's madness. And the thing that made my heart sink last week was seeing yaks in Nepal lugging this equipment up and 5G being erected on Mount Everest. Like, that's like, okay, this is the point at which we've got to say humanity has gone too far. We do not need this.
Yeah. Okay. So what can people do if this is something that they kind of just think, you know what, you haven't proven to me that this is safe. So I'm not saying that we're all going to die from it, but I'm not 100% comfortable with one outside, because quite frankly, there's a light pole outside my house, right out the front, that's right next to my bedroom. Am I comfortable with one going on there? No, definitely not. So for people who kind of are going, you know what, we need more information before you go rolling this out all over the place, what can they do to help slow this down and calm this down? Because you said there's already a few local councils that have kind of said, not happening.
Yep. So No 5G Australia have a community kit in which it's very in-depth and comprehensive. They've outlined the exact strategy that Northern Rivers for Safe Technology used. This was 11 months of community meetings, letters, meetings with local council. So the first step is downloading that community kit and writing a letter to your local council, but then it's also about power in numbers and getting other members of your local community on board and being really persistent.
Yeah.
Not because there's rubbish excuses coming back from councils and MPs that we just need to keep pushing them.
Yeah. And so if somebody is in a place where 5G has already rolled out, or they're just not able to convince that local council that this is just not happening in our area, what can they do from a safety point of view in their own home to help negate the consequences of having something so close? And after that, I would like to talk about just what can the general punter do at the moment in terms of wireless in the home too.
Yep.
So first on, you got a 5G tower outside your house. What the hell can we do?
To protect yourself.
Move.
I'd probably move, to be honest. It's another big rabbit hole in itself, and it's something I go into a lot of depth on in the Healthy Home e-course. But there are shielding options available, but you wouldn't only ever do that under the supervision of a building biologist, because you can actually, if you do it incorrectly and you're still using wireless technology inside the home, you can actually exacerbate the frequencies. But the thing that people need to realise is, unless there's one right next to you, your greatest source of daily exposure is your phone and your internet. So there's lots of people freaking out about 5G. It's like, hang on, what are you actually doing in the home? So I have hardwired internet. There's a number of things I do to reduce my exposure from my phone. So disabling your Wi-Fi, disabling your Bluetooth, not holding your phone near your head. Yeah.
Yeah. And so for people who still, might rely on wireless technology within their house for certain things that they need to use it for,
turn it off when you're not using it. And also, you can also power down your router to like 10% of the strength that it actually is. Yeah. And I've only it's taken me a few years to get to a home where I've been able to get, the hardwired situation sorted, but there are simple things like that you can do in the meantime.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast with Ben Greenfield, and I think he was interviewing, I want to say Dr. McCall, maybe. Oh, yeah. Did he just write a book called EMFs?
Did you say Dr. McCullough?
Yeah. Did he just write a book called EMFs?
I don't know the name of the book, but I know he's very vocal on this issue. And there are a lot of doctors, more and more, that are very vocal on this.
I can't remember if it was Dr. McCullough, but it was with a guy who was a doctor who had just written a book called EMFs.
Yeah.
And they were talking just about different things that you can do within the home, and turning off your Wi-Fi, even if it's just at night while you're sleeping, can make a really huge difference, especially when you think about, let's talk about those 12 hours, overnight. That's half the day that you're limiting your exposure. That can just be a really simple thing to do.
Massive difference. And also, if it is in your bedroom, or moving it to a part of the house where you're not spending most of your time.
Yeah. And I've also started just putting my phone on airplane mode at night.
Yes. Yeah. Either having your phone out of your bedroom or having it on airplane mode.
Yeah. I think can make a really big difference. Have you got any other top tips, people, just on how to make for a safer home in general? So whether that's, related to molds, cleaning products, EMFs, anything that you want to riff about.
Okay, mold's a big one. So, I mean, mold prevention, I think the people don't realise about mold is that you don't need to be able to smell it or see it for it to be present. So it's really about preventing moisture in the home. So turning your fan on when you're in the bathroom to make sure there's enough ventilation. And even as we go into the cooler months, see homes tend to kind of lock everything up, but it's really important to allow sunlight and fresh air in the home to improve the air quality. What was the other thing that you asked? What was the other?
I don't know. Cleaning products.
Oh yeah, well, they can compromise your immune system. So just using some water and essential oils or Castile soap rather than fragrance stuff that messes with your hormones and is known to be carcinogenic.
Yeah. Any other things that you can think of that can just help people have a safer home?
Something that I'm more conscious of, because I've moved into a house where the lighting is just hideously bright, but blue light. So at night time, I've got lamps on instead of the LED lights, because that can interfere with our circadian rhythm, our sleep, our hormones, compromise our immune system. That's another really simple thing that can make a massive difference to people's lives.
Definitely. I've heard about lots of people doing red bulbs like in the bathrooms and stuff like that, for if you've, you or kids have got to get up to go to the toilet during the night and you need to turn a light on, putting red bulbs in there can really help stop that blue light, like you said, which disrupts our circadian rhythm, which really just fucks with our sleep. And yet keeping light low when the light outside is low. So as soon as the sun goes down, making sure that, you're trying to keep everything inside as dim as possible, turn off all the unnecessary light, swap those really, really bright bulbs for something that is is it warmer? I think warmer is a more red bulb or something like that.
Yeah, or incandescent or halogen. Yeah.
Yeah. Or even just put red light bulbs in if you don't mind living in a red light district. Just
or wear the blue light blocker. Yeah. I work out if I'm doing webinars or stuff at night, I've got them on.
Yeah, awesome. And there's different programs you can get for your phones and your computers as well that can take the blue light out of it as well. I know on your iPhone you can actually turn it on to like a different mode. It doesn't take all the blue light out of it, but it certainly dulls the brightness down and it can kind of dim it all out.
Now just double right click on your phone and it will bring up the color filters. I do that every night, probably like 7 o'clock, and so the screen kind of goes red, and then turn it off the next morning.
You can actually set that on a timer.
Night shift. Yes.
Yeah. So I think mine from 5 o'clock in the afternoon goes on to shitty screen, which is terrible if you're trying to do like any type of photo editing or anything like that. Not a great time. But for anything else, really good. And then I think mine actually doesn't come back on to bright until after 9 a.m. the next morning.
Nice.
Yeah. And I know for like I like Apple products, there's a product thing called Flux, I think.
Yes.
That does the same. Yeah. And again, if you're a graphic designer and you're doing a lot of, color and design stuff late at night, probably not serving you. But if you're someone who's just sitting on there doing emails until all hours, having something on your screen that can take all that blue light out can really, really help with sleep quality. Because even if you're not somebody who finds that you have trouble falling asleep, it can still affect those sleep cycles and your quality deep sleep and REM sleep as well.
Yeah, you know a lot about this.
I'm just a little bit sleep obsessed. I like all of the things to do with sleep.
Well, we don't get a good sleep, then everything else becomes unstuck. So
absolutely awesome. So Zara, where can people find you if they want to know more information? They want to have a look at this ebook that you've done. They want to find places where they can write to their local council and all that sort of jazz. What's the best place for them to find you and follow along?
So my Instagram profile has a lot of links. Zara D'Cotta, all one word without the apostrophe. Also thehealthyhome.global. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Any last parting words?
Well, yeah, I guess I think a lot of people are feeling anxious about at the moment about everything that's going on, but it's just that knowledge is power, and focusing on the things we can control, which we can focus on what goes on inside our home.
Yeah, definitely. And I think if people don't want to, they find that it does make them super anxious, kind of getting into all of this stuff and getting too far down the rabbit hole, even just doing things like turn your phone off at night or onto airplane mode, turn off your Wi-Fi router, just do little things.
Do one thing, and then when you becomes habit and you're feeling stronger, go back and pick up something else. Yeah,
absolutely. And if you need to have a baby monitor, just make sure it's one that you plug in.
Not a wireless one.
Yeah, awesome. That's awesome. Thank you, Zara. Thank you so much for your time, and I'll make sure I link all of your appropriate things below so that people can come along and follow you as well.
Amazing. Thank you so much for the opportunity to talk about this stuff.
That's okay.